OK， 那我们今天呢继续开始讲这个入菩萨行论的智慧品哈。然后呢智慧品里面我们上次讲到的就是主要是怎么样遣除俱生的我执然后呢现在呢就是第二个呢是讲到的就是遍计的我执所以呢我们讲到遍计我执呢主要就是一些古印度的外道的一些教派的说法，但是呢这个我们在这边学习的时候，上次我也大致上跟大家讲了一下像数论派他们的遍计我执是怎么样产生的，他们的观点是什么这些呢大致上上一堂课我们已经讲了但是呢主要是什么呢？主要就是他们认定的有一个叫做神我神我这个呢他们属于是一个意识的然后呢这个意识呢是常法不是无常法所以呢以这个观点中观论师们呢再破除他的这个观点，接下来我们就是开始讨论这个观点这样。
So today we continue on the teaching to the guide of the Bodhisattva way of life, the chapter of wisdom. Regarding the chapter wisdom, in the previous class session, we have mentioned about how we come about to the lesson to eliminate the innate born self-attachment. And so now we're moving on to the next topic, which is the attachment of the pervading self. So this term is, by meaning refers to the various ancient India religious teachings or the ancient India schools, their views of of self. But as I mentioned, such as the school or the school of Samkhya, this ancient India school, as we mentioned, what is their view of self, their view of their self version of self-attachment comes about. But as we mentioned last time, that the school of Samkhya mainly recognize self or the self as this term parusa, or the term parusa, or it can be translated as witness consciousness. So this is a witness consciousness, and then it is permanent. So with this view of Samkhya, the school of Madhyamika, in the Buddhist school of Madhyamika, will now come in the next series of teaching, will refute this religion, Samkhya's view of self. So this is what we'll be talking about in the upcoming teachings.
所以呢在外道的说法里面呢有很多不一样的观点，但是呢全部的观点集中起来的话，就是一派呢，一个呢就是说意识是实有的，神我的这个意识是实有的。另一派就是说色法有一个常有的就是这样的两种，就可以归纳为这两种里面。所以呢现在呢就是数论派的说法，现在主要就是他们说是神我是常有的这样如果是神我是常有的一个法的话，这里说身是若是常，一切时应闻这个我们就中观就直接破斥对方的观点就说如果是常法的话，一个什么叫做常和无常呢？我们首先要知道常法就是完全没有改变的，不会有任何改变的叫做常法。那什么叫做无常呢？就是会有改变的就是会有变化的这叫做无常法所以呢他们认为他们的这个神我是常法，然后呢它是可以闻他们是可以闻声的就是可以看色法的是这样的一个。所以这样的话就问题就出来了，问题出在哪里呢？他说如果是他那个神识是常法的话，身识 那我们听见声音的时候，有一个听见声音的这个事，对不对？这个事如果是常的法的话，它是不是无常？它是常法的话，它一切的时候你都应该要听到声音。为什么呢？因为你是常法。如果是常法的话，不可能有时候听到，有时候听不到的这样的方法。如果是这样的话，它就是无常了，不是常法。所以呢，这里说，那如果是按照你的观点的话，你听声音的这个事呢，应该长时间，一天24小时，一周7天，一个月30天，一年360天，65天，全部你都会听到这个声音。你这个声音是不能断的。为什么呢？你的事是常法啊，是这样。
So regarding these non-Buddhist philosophy or non-Buddhist schools, there are actually many views. But to categorize, can be categorized to one view that regards self as consciousness or consciousness as permanent, as the term Parusa again, the witness consciousness. And another view is that the form, it is a permanent form. So self can be categorized into these two categories. So here, this non-Buddhist school of Samkhya regards Parusa, or the witness consciousness, as permanent. But if that's the case, if Parusa is permanent, then here, as we read, if the awareness of sound were I, then sound would always be apprehended. So here, the Buddhist school of Madhyamika have refuted this point directly. Because if the sense of sound, if it's permanent, or if self is permanent, and here, what is mean by permanent and what is mean by impermanent? Permanent means there's no changes at all, like 0 changes. And what is impermanent is that there will always be changes. So as they believe that this Parusa is permanent, it can hear sound, and it can see form. There's sense of hearing and seeing. But then that problem would arise, because if this Parusa, this consciousness, is permanent, then the sense of hearing, then it will always, because when we hear sound, there's this sense of hearing. So if that is permanent, then at all times, sound should be heard all the time. There will be no changes, because the sense of hearing is permanent. It wouldn't be like sometimes you hear it, sometimes you're not. Because if that's the case, then that would be impermanent. So according to their view, then sound should be should be heard at all times, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 4 weeks a month, 12 months a year, all year round, every year. The hearing of sound should not stop, because it's permanent. So thereby it should not change.
然后下面说，若无所知身，合理为是身。然后对方说，因为就是时常就是长久都不一直以来听到声音，这个是不合理的，对不对？他们也赞同，就说声音不是就是不断的，就是一天24小时都会听到声音的。他们说是对，是不会听到声音，但是不会听到声音，它这个不代表是无常。他说不代表是无常，是因为声音不在。是因为外面的那个声音不在了，所以呢，这个事他也就听不到了。就是对方的回答就是这样。那如果是声音不在了，然后就是那个就听不到的话呢，那这说若无所知声，合理为声事。如果是外面没有声音的时候呢，那你听到声音的那个事就不可能存在。你不能说是外面声音没有声音，但是呢，听到声音那个事还存在，不可能这样的。这个是这个是没有办法成立的。这里说就是说合理为实声。比如说我们外面 我面前没有一个大象的话，我眼识看大象的那个眼识不可能出现，对不对？不可能存在嘛。所以一样的道理，外面没有声音的话，那不可能有声势所以呢，那没有声势的话，他们所说的声势是常法，这个就没办法建立了，是这样。
And then thus, but without an object of awareness, what does it cognize on account of which it is called awareness? So this is referring that then that would be considered as incorrect because if if that's they also agree that yes sound cannot be heard at all times, but that doesn't mean that according to them that it is this consciousness is impermanent. It is still permanent because the sound is to be heard is not there, that this external sound is not there. Thus, the sense of hearing cannot be experienced, cannot be heard, or it cannot be experienced. But if that's the case, again, here as it reads, but without an object of awareness, what does it cognize on account of which it is called awareness? So this is to say that if there is no sound, then this sense of hearing, this sense would not exist at all. Because you cannot say, oh, there's no sound, and yet this sense of hearing is still there. For example, if there's no elephant in front of me, then the sense of me seeing this elephant, the sense of seeing would not be there, would not exist. Likewise, if there's no sound, then there is no sound, sense of hearing. And if there's no sense of hearing, then to say that this sense or this consciousness is permanent, that is not acceptable. That is illogical.
然后说继续驳斥对方的观点，说无事若能知，则数亦应知。如果你们说就是说这个没有无事，没有这个意识，也能知道的话那树、木头、石头，他们都应该要知道也可以有就是取镜，然后就是闻声的这样的作用这个就是虽然他们没有这样说，但是呢，按照他们的逻辑去推理的话，这样的过失就是他们就有这样的过失这样清楚你看，因为他们的就是上面说，若无所知声，合理为是声，就是说如果没有外面的声音的话，意识是不可能存在的。然后呢，就说如果是意识不存在的话，都可以去理解声音，或是可以去听声音，看这个色然后呢，就是看颜色，红白的这样的颜色的话，那树也可以应该要有就是去听声然后就是看这个颜色的这个作用这就是一个逻辑的推理来驳斥他们。但是这个可不可能呢？不可能嘛，因为树跟木头他们是没有思想的，他们没有意识的，他们根本没有听，然后呢就是看颜色的这样的一个事存在是这样。
And then Madhyamika school continues to refute their point. If that which is not cognizant or awareness, a piece of wood would be awareness. Then therefore it is certain there is no awareness in the absence of its object. So this is to say that if you claim that if one has no consciousness, can sense, has sense of seeing and hearing, then the wood, the log, these stones, they can have senses as well. They can experience sounds and forms. But even though the other school did not say this directly, but this can be deduced from their logic. So therefore, they have this faulty. Their logic or their view has this faulty issue at hand. So as it says in the previous, that if there's if without an object of awareness, what does it cognize on an account of which it is called awareness? So again, if there is no external sound, then the sense of hearing would not be present, would not be there. But if one to say there's no sense, if one with no consciousness can sense, hear, can have sense of hearing, sense of seeing, then the trees should be able to do so. They should be able to hear sounds and see colors, etc. So this is using a logic, their logic, to refute their own point. But we all know that's impossible, because a tree or wood, a piece of wood, lacks consciousness. So therefore, they cannot sense, they cannot have sense of seeing or sense of hearing, because again, they do not have consciousness.
然后呢，是故定应结无尽则无知。所以呢，他说，所以呢，我们应该要知道，应该要了解，当外面的境比如说声音不存在的时候呢，就是这个持这个声音的这个事也不可能存在没有境的话就没有那个事没有外面没有颜色的话，你看这个色的这个事也不会存在。外面没有声音的话，听声音的这个事也不可能存在这样说，无境则无知，因为我们所说的这个声事就是听声音的这个事是因为外面有声音，然后再产生这一个事。然后我们所说的就是看色的看颜色的这个事，也是因为外面有颜色，然后再产生这个看颜色这个事除此之外，外面颜色也不存在，声音也不存在的时候，然后在那边说这个是看颜色的这个事那个是听声音的事它这里没有对境的当下，它都在停留在那里呢？没有这是不可能的这是不存在的。这样，所以呢，就是无境则无知没有境的时候，就根本不存在认知那个境的这个事这样。
Then it reads, therefore, it is certain there is no awareness in the absence of its object. So we need to understand when there's a external object, such as sound, then there's this awareness or sense of hearing, then it will be present. If there's no object, then there will be no sense to perceive, no sense. So, and also, for example, if there's no color to be seen, then the sense of seeing would not exist. So, and then if there's no sound, then there will be no sense of hearing or the awareness of hearing. And because our sense of hearing is due to this sense is there because of this external object of sound. Thus, there's this sense that forms. And also, likewise, seeing color. Because there's external color to be perceived, to be seen, then thus there's this sense of seeing that exists. Other than that, if there's no color or sound, then there will be no sense of seeing or hearing. So you cannot say that, there is a permanent sense of seeing and hearing at all time. Because again, if there's no object to perceive, then these senses would not exist. They will not be there.
然后对方又说，若为必之色，那对方又说，这个是，怎么说呢？首先听到声音的这个事呢，之后他也可以看到颜色所以它只是它的这个 境变了而已，但是他自己没有变，他还是常法啊。对方如果这样说的话呢，对方的观点就说，比如说我的这个事它是常法但是呢，他首先是听到声音，然后之后也可以看到颜色，然后之后也可以就是说味觉闻到这些香味等等的这些然后碰触到的就是触觉，这些都可以产生的，这是境的差别。但是呢，它本身它没有变对方的观点是这样，他自己的这个事呢是常法他如果是对方的观点是这样的。
And then thus the other school refute again by saying that this sense of hearing, this sense, this awareness, it can also see as well. Only because it is only the object that is changed, but it itself, the sense itself does not change. It is permanent. As they claim that this sense is permanent, it can hear sound, it can see form, taste, smell, and touch. These can all occur, these can all arise, but due to only the changes of the objects. But the sense, this sense or this awareness itself, it is not changing, it is permanent.
然后这里说，必实何不闻那这样的话，如果是这个就是上面我们提到的这个逻辑一样的如果你是闻声的那个是常法的话，那你之后你在看到这个颜色色法的时候，也同样应该要听到声音。为什么呢？因为你那个听声音的那个是常法，常法不应该有变化这样。所以说必实和不闻应该要你看到颜色的同时，你应该要同时那个声音还没有间断，一直在听，一直有这个声势这样。
And then it reads, why does that which cognizes form not hear it as well? So this is to say that if that's the case with the view that the school of Samkhya just said, if the sense of hearing is permanent, then when you have this sense of seeing, when you see, then you should hear as well at the same time. Why is that? It is because if that's the case, then since the sense of hearing is permanent, then there should be no changes. And then so that it means the same time you see, you should hear at all times as well.
然后对方说，若为身不净，那对方说，哦，不是，因为我在看色法的时候呢，声音不在附近，所以听不到如果你这样说的话呢，所以没有声音在附近，所以听不到。这样的话呢，得知是亦无如果是按照这样来说的话，就是我们的理论那个逻辑就是一样的因为没有对境，那你的声音的这个是也应该不可能存在因为没有境嘛，没有境的话，怎么会有这个是呢？就说则知是亦无这样。
And the other school replies, because there is the absence of sound, there is no awareness of it. So they say, oh, when we see, when we have the sense of seeing, because there's no sound around, so at that time there's no, then that's why it cannot be, no sound can be heard. Therefore, it didn't hear any sound. But then here, but then that's not the right. But if that's the case, then the logic goes back to the same, because as we mentioned, this Madhyamika refuted that because there's no object, thus there's no sense of hearing. So it just comes back again that since there's no sound, then there is no sense of hearing, because again, there is no object to be perceived.
然后这里说，闻声自信者云何成掩饰所以呢， 比如说我们闻身的这个事，它是一个常法，它是一个个体的它是一个就是个别的一个法，是常法。然后呢，我们眼睛看到的这个色法的时候，这个事也是一个个别的。那所以就现在就是变成了两个个别的，怎么可以变成是一样呢？就是两个不一样的事，对不对？比如说我们耳饰听到的这个声音，对他们来说，他们是常法嘛。如果是常法的话，它这个就是一个个别的跟别的就是没有办法融合的然后呢，后来色法看到的这个事，它也是个别的。如果两个个别的不一样的个体你怎么可以说成是一个神我一个常法一个神我呢？这是不可以的，这样。
And then it reads, how can something that is of the nature of the apprehension of sound be the apprehension of form? So this sense of hearing, or this the term apprehension or sense of hearing, if it is permanent, then it is it is permanent, it is individual. Then the sense of seeing, if it is also permanent, if it is also an individual permanent entity, then there's two individual entities. And if that's the case, how can they be the same? Because for them, in their view, that the sense of hearing is something permanent, it is an individual. It cannot be blended with others. It is independent. And then the sense of seeing, it is also permanent and an independent individual. So if these are two independent individuals, how can they say that this is one as one Purusa? This cannot be done. It cannot be said in such way.
这里呢，我们要重点的要知道的一个就是说，为什么这里说你的耳饰跟眼睛看的色法的这个眼视是不同的在这里破斥的原因是什么呢？本来我们就觉得说这是可以我可以同时眼睛也看到色法，然后呢耳朵也可以听到声音，然后呢鼻子也可以闻到这个香味，可以同时这样产生。但是呢，这里为什么说不可以这个原因就是因为他们的观点是一切法是常法就是不是无常的，是实有的。一旦你承认这是实有的法的时候，它就没有办法，它就是不可能产生这样的。你没有办法将耳识跟眼识这些全部都是前后的连接在一起，就成为一体没有办法的。第一，它是常法；第二个，它是实有的。一旦是常法实有就没有办法。但是呢，如果不是常法，是无常的法，然后呢是非实有的就是这样的话，这些都是可以存在的，就好像我们现在的状况一样的这些都是可以存在的。但是他们的观点上，就这个完全没有办法成立的原因是在这里。
So here is the critical point to understand that why do we say the sense of hearing and seeing are different? And because though here the reason to refute this is because for us normally we would think, oh, actually I can see and I can hear at the same time, and my nose can smell as well. But why does it say here in the text that this is not to be done? It cannot be done. It is because other school, they claim that in their claim that all phenomenons are permanent. Once you claim that all phenomenons are permanent, then you cannot have any changes. You cannot have any association with any of the senses. If one is permanent and it's independent and it's self-existing, then there's no way for any changes. If it is something impermanent and it is not self-existing, then these can all be established. These can all be experienced. But in their school view, this would not work.
然后呢，对方又说，哦，这个没有关系，这是可以成立的。为什么呢？他举了一个例子，就说，比如说一个人也可以是父亲，也可以是儿子啊。所以呢，我们这边他说就是，但是这个人他是常法，就是我们的事，它是一个常法，神我是常法，但是呢，他也可以看色法，也可以闻这个身他举的例子是这样。所以，但是呢，在这里说你的例子不成立，一人成父子，假名非真实那我们真正的仔细，我们不好好观察，不去考虑的时候，好像有道理哦。对啊，一个人也可以成为是父子，父亲也可以成为儿子，但是呢，我们真正的去思考的一下的话，这是一个不可能的事情。为什么呢？因为当你说是儿子的时候，他是针对父亲来说的是儿子，他是儿子；针对他的父亲来说，他是儿子。但是呢，当你说父亲的儿子的时候，他是又是相反的，他是针对父亲，看到有父亲才可以建立这个儿子。意思就是说，一个人如果是要成立也是父亲也是儿子的话，他是对他的儿子来说他是父亲，对他的爸爸来说他是儿子。那真正的所谓的儿子跟父亲是真实上存在吗？不存在就这样，这个道理清楚吗？
And then the other school, this refuting school, would say, "Oh, actually, that is okay because it gave an example. A person can be both a father and son, but then that person is someone permanent. So this example is that this parusa, this witness consciousness is permanent as it can see and it can hear. But this example does not work here, as it says. One person may be considered as a father and as a son, but not in terms of ultimate reality. If we don't observe this carefully, we may think, oh, yeah, that is true. One can be a father and be a son. But if we think about it, it is something impossible. Because when you say one can be a son, that is to his father. And in that context, he is the son. And then one can be a father, but that it is in the context when it is with his son. So this is like an opposite. So one for the son, he is the father. For the father, he is the son. But is that something truly something that's truly self-existing? No, that is actually not the case, and it's clear to you.
为什么说这个例子不成立我们说，如果它是一个实有的法，是个真实的法，那对于任何人来说，他都是那样的，所以不可能说是对这个人是这样的，对那个人是那样的，没有办法成立这样的一个实法。比如说我们前面的一块黄金，它是一个真实的黄金的话，那我们人类的所有的人看到它都是黄金，而不是说对有些人看到是黄金，对有些人看到是白银，不是这样的嘛，对不对？所以呢，他举的这个例子不成立的原因，就是因为对他的儿子来说，他是父亲，但是呢，他不是儿子。但如果你要这个例子是真实的话，如果按照他们的原则的话，如果是他是实有的一个法，然后真实的话，他儿子看到的时候也应该是父亲，父亲看到的时候也是应该父亲，不变嘛，因为常法嘛，但是呢，这个没有办法成立啊。儿子看到的时候他是父亲，但是父亲看到的时候他不是父亲，那是儿子，还是这样。
So why do we say this example, this metaphor does not work? Because if it is something that's inherently existing or self-existing, and it is or something real, then it would be permanent. It would be the same for anyone in any cases. You cannot say it is one way to one person and then another way to a different way to another person. This wouldn't work. Just for example, if there's a piece of gold in front of us, then for us, all human beings, when we see it, we should see gold. It cannot be seen as gold to someone and then silver to someone else. So that does not work. This example would not work. So because to a person, to his son, he is the father, not son. Because if we were to follow their view that if it's something that is inherently existing, it should be permanent. So that when the son sees this person, he sees his father. But then when his father sees him, the father should see also the father. But that, since the father is permanent, but that does not work, in their view, because again, as we know, when the person's son sees a father, but then when the person's father sees, that sees a son.
所以呢，他们这个的例子就这样，就是这里说就是不成立。然后呢，除了那个不成立之外呢，忧喜暗三德，非子，亦非父，如果是他们说就是如果真实存在的一个东西，就在他们的圣义里面，圣义地里面是应该存在的。那他们的圣义是什么呢？他们忧喜暗三德忧喜暗三德平衡的时候，他们的圣义。但是呢，在忧喜暗三德里面也看不出来有父亲，也没有儿子所以呢，这个里面也既不存在父亲，也不存在儿子，所以呢，他这个按照他们自己的说法也没有办法成立。这样。
So thus, this example would not work, and also, as it reads, since Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are neither a father nor a son. So this is to say that if this is something that is inherently existing, then it should exist in their ultimate reality, which is in this balanced state of the Sattva, Ramas, and Rajas. That is their view of ultimate reality. But within excuse me, their ultimate reality, there is no father nor a son. So in this case, again, there is no father, no son. So in their view, by their view, this would not work either.
然后继续驳斥对方的观点，说必无闻声信，不见彼性骨所以如果是在你们所说的闻到声音的时候，声势，然后在看颜色的时候，这个声势还存在，也同时还存在的话，我们应该要看得到我们应该要见得到，但是从来见不到你在听声音的时候，你所说的那个常法的事也见不到，然后你在看色法的时候，不是你闻声音的时候，你见色法的那个事也看不到。然后你在见色法的时候，你听声音的那个事也看不到所以呢就没办法成立这样不见彼性骨这样。
And thus, as we continue to refute, moreover, if its nature is not seen as related to the apprehension of sound. So this is to say that as we continue to refute, when you have the sense of hearing and sense of seeing, if these senses are present at all time, then they should be experienced as well. So this means that when you have sense of hearing, the sense of seeing should be experienced as well. And when you have sense of seeing, or when you see, the sense of hearing should be experienced as well, but that is not the case.
然后他们又继续辩论说，这个没有问题。他们说，举一个例子，他说举一个例子怎么样呢？如见记忆状就说比如说一个表演的演员演员他可以就说早上穿这个，比如说是天人的衣服，然后呢变成好像天人一样的，然后下午来又穿不一样的衣服，表演不一样的节目。 但是看起来是不一样，但是呢，里面的人是一样的啊。所以他说，我们所谓的神我的话是存在的。他在听声音的时候，是因为外面的对境是声音，然后呢，他看色法的时候，外面的这个东西是色法，但是呢，里面的神是我是一样的啊。他们以这个来举例子。
And then they continue to reply and refute, saying that actually that is not a problem, because just like an actor, in the morning, it takes on the guise of a heavenly being by wearing the clothes of heavenly being in the morning show. And then in the afternoon, it has a different show. He would don on another guise. So likewise, this Purusa is just like the actor. The actor is always an actor, but it can take on different guises. So when he hears sounds, then it becomes a sense of hearing. And then when it sees, when there's something to be seen, it becomes the sense of seeing.
然后这里中观的中观是说，世事即非常。那如果是按照这样来跟他们的观点来说的话，那你们的所谓的神我是常法，那个就没办法建立了，就变成了无常的法了。为什么呢？因为有变化嘛，因为有变化就是无常啊。你不可能说，这个是又有变化，但是呢也是常法，这个没有办法建立的，在这个逻辑推论里面，在这个理论上面是没有办法成立的。如果你一旦说是常法，它就是一个没有变化的。但是一旦有变化，它就是无常法啊。所以呢，你比如说上午变成这个像天人一样的，下午变成魔鬼一样的，这就是一个很大的变化所以呢，这个变化，那你就是可以说是自己把自己的观点就是驳斥掉了就是变成了无常，那你的说常法就不成立这样世事即非常
So that's in if the same thing takes on another guise like an actor, he too is not permanent. If he has different natures, then this unity of his is unprecedented. So this is to say that if that's this case, then the school of Madhyamika refute that. Then your claim that this Purusa as permanent would not work, because there's changes. And if there's changes, then that is impermanent. It is not permanent. You cannot say, oh, there are changes, and then claim that it is permanent. That would not work. If it is permanent, then it should have no changes at all. If once there's changes, then that is impermanent. Just as we see in the case that in the morning, the actor with guys take on the form dress as a heavenly being, and if the more afternoon, the actor takes on the guys as a demon, then that is a big change. So here, the school of Samkhya basically refuted itself with this example, as this is something impermanent.
然后呢为一样一体如果对方说虽然看起来是两个不同的，但是我们还是承认这是恒常的，这是一体的话呢如果是你们这样的话，必疑未曾有，那这就中观师就说那这样的话就是没有什么好辩的了，这样的说法从来没有过就说看起来是两个，然后就显现的是两个，但是你一定要承认这是一体的话，这就是一个从来在这个逻辑推论里面，在理论这个辩论的过程当中，从来没有出现过的一种理论方法这样就是怎么说呢？意思就是完全不通你们这样的说法就完全没有任何的智慧的一个推理这样。
So again, if he has different natures, then this unity of his is unprecedented. It's unprecedented. So here, this is to say that if this other school, the school Samkhya continue to claim that it is still the same nature, even though there's manifest differently, then then there's nothing to be said, because if one to claim that the nature is one, and then it has different changes of forms, then there has been never, then there's nothing to be said anymore, because this never has occurred. This logic does not work at all. There's nothing to have a debate on, because this has never, this unprecedented, no one has ever heard this kind of saying before. There is no logical deduction, so to speak. So there's nothing to be said if one have to claim in such way.
异样若非真，自信复为何？就说这样的两种东西都是不一样的两种东西就是这不是真实的话，那他们说这个外面的显现这个不是真实的，真实的那个是在里面就是神我，这是真实的。然后他就说，这里就中观就反问他说，自信复为何？那你告诉我一下，你所谓的就是神我所谓的自信这是什么东西请你告诉我，这样。
So here it reads, if another guise is not the true one, then describe its natural appearance.
So if you're just saying that these two different entities, if they're not real, if these manifestations are different, but yet their natures are the same, then the Madhyamika school asked this school of Sankhya, tell me, what is this nature? What is this Purusa?
在这里主要就是要知道，他们说闻身的这个身世，然后呢看色法的这个在表面上，这些都不是真实的这样。那如果是你在听声音的时候的这个身世，也不是真实的。然后呢你再看这个色法的这个事，也不是真实的，你所谓的那个常法那个神我的话，那请你告诉我你的神我是什么，这样。
So here we need to understand, this is to say that when we have this sense of hearing and sense of seeing, if they claim that these are not real, these are not Purusa, just like if you hear, the sense of hearing is not Purusa, it's not real. And if you say the sense of seeing, when something to be seen is not Purusa, it is not the Purusa, it's not real, then tell me, what is Purusa?
然后说中观说，对方如果说是若为即是是，那因为现在他们没有办法找到一个，就是直接点到说这个才是我的是的嘛，因为他的眼视也不是，然后呢耳视，然后就是这些都不是，那是什么呢？他就说只是是就是比如说我们就我们不说是 Harrison， 也不说是就是易容，我们就说是人这样一样的，他就说只是就是人，我们所说的举个例子是这样的，所以他们说就是视，我们不说是眼视、耳视、鼻视，什么事我们都不说，就是视这个就是他们的神我。如果他们是这样说的话呢，若为即是视的话，众生将成一。那按照你们的观点的话，一切众生都变成了一个了。就是一体，没有很多的众生了，因为大家都有事就是你们所谓的神我的话，就是一个事，所以呢，就是一切众生变成一体，这样，这个逻辑大家知道吗？哈，
Because now, since they cannot say, this is not Purusa, the sense of hearing is not Purusa, the sense of seeing is not Purusa, then what the school of Madhyamika asked, what is this Purusa? So the school of Samkhya saying the Purusa is just sense. For example, we wouldn't say Harrison, we wouldn't say Irong, we would say just human. So this is their claim. They claim that it's just sense. there's not the sense of hearing, not sense of seeing. But if that's the case, then then he reads, if they were the nature of awareness, then it would follow that all people would be identical. So in that case, that means all sentient being would be one, would be sense. There is no separation of sentient beings because everyone is sense. Everyone is sense. So does everyone? So do we understand such logic?
哎呀就是除了那个之外呢，就是按照他们的理论的话说，心无心意一，心无心意一同为实有故。那他们所说的心法，就是他们承认的，就是万法归纳为25法里面的，首先就是神我嘛，神我就是心法，然后其他的都是物质的法24种。那对于你们来说的话，这些都变成一个了，就没有办法没有必要分成两个。为什么呢？从存在的这个观念上来说，他们都是存在的。说从存在的这样的理由，刚刚他们说只是是的理由，他们就可以归纳在一体的话，那你也可以把所谓的一个存在感就是归纳在一体。那你的色法以及就是神识都变成了一体这样。
And also it reads, that which has volition and that which has no volition would be identical because their existence would be the same. So this is to say that if that's the case, then according to review, as the school of Samkhya categorized all phenomena into 25 categories, which Purusa as one consciousness, and 24 are this object, physical entities, then all these 25 categories of phenomenon will be the same, will be as one entity. There will be no point to have any categorization in terms of, because in terms of existing, they're all inherently exist. They're all as one. If they claim that this sense is one as one entity, then everything will be exists as one, including the Purusa and all phenomena. If that's the case, according to their view, then everything will be as one. There will be no difference.
这个逻辑听起来好像可能比较难理解，但是你们慢慢的思考一下的话，这个其实很简单的一个逻辑哈。
This logic may be hard to understand at first, but if you give it more thoughts, this is actually pretty easy to grasp, to understand.
然后下面说，他胜成忘时，何为共同一那这里主要就是说其实我们所说的人，它是不存在的为什么呢？因为它是一个总体，一个虚构的一个名字只是我们很多的人，比如说是我们，比如说一个所谓一个团体好了，我们比如说我们的这个Sangha member，我们今天这边的就是75位道友，我们说德钦荣的Sangha，但是呢，我们把这里面的人一个一个的全部拆开来的时候，Sangha不存在，它这是个假立的名字，假立的一个名字，所以呢，他刚刚说意识。那个眼视、耳视这些，除此这些之外，然后有一个是我，所以这里就是说是不存在的。其实这些全部都是就是假立的一个名词而已。在真正上的话，它是所说的一个是或者一个人，这个是不存在的，这是假立的一个名词。这样。
And then read, if difference were false, then what would be the basis for similarity?
So this is to say, when we for example, what we refer as human, this human does not inherently, it's not something inherently existing. It is a mere label Or for example, let's say a group or a sangha. Here, the sangha members. Here we have 75 members present with us in BRDC sangha. But if we separate each member, each person one by one, the so-called sangha does not exist at all. It is just a label. It is non-existent. It's just a label. It's not inherently exist. Like that, the view of the sense of hearing, the sense of seeing, and these are just labels. They do not inherently exist. So whether it's sense or senses or person, then these things do not inherently exist. They are just labels.
所以呢，这以上的话就是破了这个数论派的观点，主要就是他们说神我是事，心事，然后这是常法这样。接下来呢就是圣论派的观点。圣论派的观点的话，就是跟这个数论派的就是完全不一样的。他们所说的神我常法，它是一个色法，而不是意识这样。
So here, up to now, is the refuting of the view of School Samkhya, as they claim that the self as a parusa, as permanent consciousness. And now we move on to the refuting the school of Vaisesika. Its view, this school's view is completely different from the School of Samkhya, that it regards the self as permanent, as form, not consciousness, as a physical, as a physical entity, not consciousness.
所以呢，我们要知道这里他们所说的神我的话，他们也是所说的这个我的话呢，神我的话呢是常法，它也是受用者，然后它就是说但是它不是心法，它是色法这样。如果是色法没有心事的话呢，这里中观就说无心亦非我，无心则如瓶。如果是没有心的话呢，没有这个心事的话呢，就好像瓶子，或是树，或是木头这样一样的，它没有任何的感受，没有任何的去就是怎么说呢享用感受就是其他的东西的这种的事，所以跟瓶子跟这个石头一样的这样。
So here, the school of Vaisesika claims that their self, their witness conscious, their self is something permanent. It perceives object, but it is not consciousness. It is something physical, a physical way. But then thus it reads, that which is not consciousness is not I, because it lacks consciousness like a cloth and the like. So here the Chinese version regards cloth or as a glass of a bottle, because if there's no consciousness, then it is like a bottle, a glass bottle, or a tree or wood. It would not have the ability to experience or to feel phenomena. So thus, if I has no consciousness, then it is just like a glass of bottle or a tree.
所以大家要知道，他们就是一个辩记的我他们也是承认辩记我，他们自己编出来了一个我神我，但是呢，他们的这个神我是色法，然后数论派的神我是心事，但是这个他们所说的我常我，它是色法这个大家要清楚，要不然的话，这里下面我们在博指的这个观点根本就好像没有办法清楚这样。
So here we need to understand the school of Vaisesika. Also, their view is also that claims there is this pervading self. that they in their view they created the self as something permanent, but the self is a form. It exists as a form, while Samkhaya's version of self exists as a consciousness. So this is something we need to be first clear of. Otherwise, we may not get the logic of the different refutes and debates in the next teachings, in this coming teachings.
所以上面说的无心则如贫，为什么这一句话可以破斥他们的观点呢？因为他们所说的神我是可以享受就是快乐享受痛苦这些，他都是可以享受的。那这里说无心则如贫呢？如果是你没有心事的话，就像瓶子一样的、木头一样的就是棍子一样的。他们没有任何的那种感受快乐与痛苦的感受，所以你这个不成立就是他的破斥的主要观点是在这里。
So when the verse says it lacks consciousness like a cough and the like, why does this phrase refuse their view all around? Because their claim that the self, their view of self can enjoy happiness and suffering. But if the self has no consciousness, then it would be just like a glass of bottle. It would be just like a piece of wood, a stick. It does not have any feeling to experience happiness or suffering. Thus, this refutes their view.
然后他们就回答说，为何有心骨？他们说这个没有关系，因为虽然我是一个色法，但是呢，它跟心事碰面在一起的时候，它就可以依靠心事来感受这个快乐与痛苦。他有这个办法。他说跟心碰在一起的时候呢，他有这个能力，他就会成为有这样的能力了。这样。
But then the school of Vaisesika replies, actually, that's okay as well, because even though this self is a form, it exists as a form, when it encounters consciousness, it can rely on consciousness to experience happiness and suffering. So when they encounter each other, then the self has the ability to experience happiness and suffering.
那这里中观就说知成无知灭那如果是你说你的这个神我就是色法的这个神我跟心事碰在一起的时候，他就可以知道这个东西他有这个快乐痛苦这样的感受的话，那你所谓的就说之前他说是他的神我是不知道的，他是没有感觉的没有任何的就是想知的能力的，所以因为他说他是那个这个色法嘛，所以你之前他自己承认的建立的他的观点就灭了就是破灭了你自己的观点这样。
And then it reads, if it were conscious because it has consciousness.
So if that's the case, that if they claim this, when the self encounters consciousness, then it can begin to experience, etc., to have experience. Then likewise, they have refuted their first point or their initial point that the self has no ability to is not is a form. It does not have the ability to experience because it is a form. So thus it has their reply to this refute again kind of just contradict itself already again.
因为他们自己所说的我就是他们所说的我，他说是我不知尽他的这个我是不知道对尽的，我是无心的我是没有心的，然后呢我已经成为 知境的体性啊，就是他说他的观点就是主要就是我是没有心，没有不知道对境的，所以现在这里说跟心事碰到的时候，他也可以知道对境，就他自己的观点就自己破了，这样。
So here, because their claim, or excuse me, their view is that this self cannot perceive object because it is not capable of perceiving objects. But once it encounters consciousness, then it has the capability to perceive object. But that itself has refuted. They basically contradicted themselves to state that self cannot perceive object, but now it can because it encounters consciousness.
然后就是若我无变异，心欲必何用？然后另外一个破执的观点就是说，因为你的我是一个常法，如果是常法的话，它是不会有任何的变化的，所以它没有变化的话，它跟心碰在一起也没有用啊，因为它不管跟心碰在一起也好，没有碰在一起也好，它是常法，它不会有任何的变化，所以心欲必何用？就你说跟心碰到的时候可以这个有作用，但是按你的自己的这个主观或你的这个建立的宗派的话，那你跟心碰在一起也没有用啊，认为它是常法这样。
And then it reads, then it would follow that when it stops being consciousness of any, if it were conscious because it has consciousness, then it would follow that when it stops being consciousness of anything, it would vanish. So also, and if they're in their view that the self is permanent, then there will be no changes. It wouldn't matter if it encounters consciousness or not, because there will be no changes. But when they say that once the self encounters consciousness, then it has the function to experience, to perceive, then that's contradicting to your initial original view that the self is permanent and it have not any changes. Because again, if it's permanent, then it should not have any changes.
然后无知复无用，虚空亦成我。所以呢，那说穿了，你们的观点就是，第一个无知对境的，他是不知道对境的。然后呢，第二个也是没有作用的。那你们所谓的你们的神我你们所说的我这个常我，就好像虚空一样的没有任何东西，就好像虚空一样的，你们把它当作是我这样。其他没有任何的意义。
And then if self is not subject to change, what is the use of its consciousness? Thus, this implies that space, which lacks consciousness and activity, has a self. So this is to explain that if that's the case, if in your view the self cannot perceive object, it cannot have any function, then it is just like space. There's nothing. That you're basically regarding space as self. It is meaningless.
这以上的话，我们将数论派跟圣论派的两个教派的观点已经讲完了那重点就是一个的观点就是神我是意识的常法，一个的观点是神我是这个实有的物质的一个常法，所以这两个观点的不成立所以呢，我们以上这些观点的话就已经讲完了这样。
So thus we have refuted these two non-Buddhist schools' view of self, the school of Samkhya and the school of Vaisesika, that one regards self as a Purusa witness consciousness, and then one school regarding self as a physical or form. As we have refuted, not both of these views do not stand; they are not correct.
接下来呢就是遣除无我之争论 那这个遣除无我的争论这里面呢，它的对境是包括我们佛教的里面也有，然后呢就是外道都有，佛教里面也有就是这样的争论，所以针对两个就是对两个争论的就是这里以下是针对两种的，内教跟外道都有。然后这里面呢就是分成第一个是遣除业果不合理，然后呢是遣除悲心不合理这个两个，首先两种这样。
And now on to the to eliminate the debate or the debate of non-self. This is and then the object or the regarding the view debates are the debates within the Buddhist schools and also non-Buddhist schools. So there's the debates within Buddhist schools and also non-Buddhist schools. And here it can be divided to eliminate the debates regarding karma and eliminate debates regarding practice of compassion.
首先呢，这里就说，这个业果如果是一切都是空性的话，我们所说的因果不合理，就是主要是辩论这个。这里说，若我非实有，业果悉非理。以作我既灭，谁复受业果就是这个来讲的这里是怎么说的呢这里说如果是没有我一个就是常我的存在那这样的话如果是非实有我是空性如果没有这个实有的我的话，那业果悉非理。那业我们所说的你造善业就有善的果报，然后呢做恶业的话有恶的果报等等的这些呢，就是没有，就是非理就是不合理这样。
So here, this is following the debate to claim that if everything is emptiness, then karma is not logical, and then there is not, it's not logical. As it reads, without self, the relationship between an action and its result is not possible. For the agent of an action has perished. Who will have the results? So this is to say, this is a claim or a claim that if there's no permanent self, if self is not inherently exist, then what is karma? Then if one commits virtuous cause, then one who would get the virtuous effect, and if one commits negative cause, who would experience negative effect, then that would be illogical.
然后说以作我己灭，谁复受业果业报这样？为什么呢？他们说，因为比如说我今生就是做一个善业，然后呢，我死了以后，那我的这个现在的这个五蕴的这个身体就会毁灭掉了，就不存在了灭掉了。但是呢，那个善果，那就谁会去受呢？就是没有人去受如果没有我的话，所以他们就说，因为有一个我常我存在，所以呢，就算是我今生这个身体已经毁灭掉了，但是呢，下一世就是有一个常我呢，他会去感受这个果报如果是你们说这个常我不存在，没有我的话，那谁去受果报比如说是现在我所遭了一些善业的话，那我死了以后，这个身体是不可能去受因为这个身体就是要不然的话就火化掉了，要不然就是埋到土里面，要不然的话就扔到水里面了，就是被这个鱼等吃掉了，所以谁去受果报？就没有人去受果报所以呢，他们就说不合理的原因就在这里这样。
So here, again, as it reads, for if an agent of an action has perished, who will have the results? So this is in their claim that as one commits a positive act in this life, and then if that person dies, this aggregate of body
perish, then who, if there's no permanent self, then who would experience the positive effect in the next life? Because only if there's a permanent self, that even if this body perishes, then this permanent self in next life will able to experience the positive effect. But if this permanent self does not exist, then who can experience the positive effect? Because if this body upon death, after death, it is cremated or be thrown to the river to feed the fishes. If this just perish, then who would experience who's able to experience the positive effect for their action? So this is their claim to say that if that's the case, if there's no self, then that would be illogical.
然后这里呢就是中观的回复，说作者受者义，报时作者亡，如我若共许，增此有何益？这个叫做相同辩论啊，就说把他们的理论再回复给他们啊，这样啊，这里说中观说对，没有错啊，作者受者义啊，比如说一个人在做这个制作这个因的时候，善业的时候然后呢，他要做善因制作这个因的时候，他的果是不存在的。但是呢，当这个果呈现的时候，这个因已经灭了，所以呢，不可能说是在制造这个因的时候，果就同时存在，这是不可能的。所以呢，在种这个善因的时候呢，这个果不存在；当果呈现的时候，这个因就不存在了。就是报时作者亡，意思就是这样的就是当因的时候，就是果不存在；果的时候，因不存在，这样作者亡。这个是你我两个都同意的这个观点是不管是你或者是我中观，我们都是同意的，这样如我若共许这我们都是共同同意的，所以呢这个对你说的这个争论是我们都同意的。然后呢，另外一件呢，就说，但是呢，你们的观点里面说是有一个我，这个我是个常法，那就算是你们所说的就是没有人受果报的话，那按照你们的观点来说，也没有办法成立。为什么呢？因为你们所说的我是常法，我是常法的时候呢，因的时候就是制造这个因的时候的我跟果的时候的我是不变的。那没有变的话，他那个果报谁承受？谁来感受这个果？因为要感受这个果的话，当然要跟在因的地方是不一样的，对不对？你制造因的时候跟制造就呈现果的时候是完全两码事情。你不能说你种下了一颗青稞的种子在地上，然后呢，这个青稞完全没有任何损坏的，然后这个果青稞的苗出来了，然后再呈现果了，跟这个完全没有损坏的，还是同样在，不可能嘛。所以呢，因的时候它是灭掉的，果的时候呈现的。所以按照这个理论来说的话，对你们来说你们所说的常有常法有个神我的存在，这个也对这个辩论上对你们来说也有这个怎么说就是缺点你们也有缺点这样。所以呢，争此有何意？那你跟我这个争论有什么意义呢？没有任何的意义，因为这个缺点你也存在，这样，你也有这样的缺点的。
And then the school Madhyamika replies, when both of us have agreed that an action and its results have different bases and that self has no influence in this matter, then there is no point in arguing about this. So this is using their logic to reply to them. For example, when a person commits a positive cause, the effect does not exist yet when the cause is committed. And likewise, when the effect manifests, the cause have already ceased, is no longer there. So it is impossible for the effect and cause to be there at the same time. When there's a cause, the effect does not exist. When the effect exists, the cause is no longer there. This is something that we both agree upon. And yet, But your view claim that the self is inherent existing and is permanent. Even if you were based on your view, then that would not work, because if self is inherent exists, and then if the self does not change, is permanent, then who's able to experience that effect? You cannot say you plant a seed of barley, and as the seed grow, and then you're able to see the barley, but at the same time, the seed itself is not destroyed. So that does not work, because this is something that's agreed upon, and this is something that's like a faulty point that we both agree on. The effect, and so therefore, with this point as a fault, therefore, there's no point to argue, as we both agree upon this. This is something that this is the point that we both share upon.
所以在这里大家清楚了哈，这个观点，这个是很多人都就是有疑问的。上面两个我们讲的这个圣论派数论派的这些观点的话，我们知道也可以，没有知道也不会有很大的就是失误因为我们这边没有一个人是承认这个神我的这样的一个观点的。但是呢，这一下的这个的话，很多人有这样的想法，所以呢，这个大家要仔细的思考哈。所以在这里这个中观论回复他们的时候就说，因为对方说你说无我，你说是我不存在是空性，那你没有这个我的话，那你说还有善有善报，恶有恶报，那怎么成立他们是这样说的。那中观这里回的时候的话没有错就是善有善报，恶有恶报，这个就是对于你跟我来说，两个都有这样的就是争论，可以成立这个争论。但是呢，除此之外呢，你还有一个更严重的，对你来说，对方以为说他承认一个常我的存在的话，那善有善报，恶有恶报，这个可以建立。但是呢，他也是没有办法建立的。为什么呢？因为一个常法是没有变化的，没有变化的时候的话，他怎么会有这个痛苦或是快乐的感受比如说他制造因，然后再变成果，然后就是承受痛苦或者快乐，没有办法成立这个。所以其实他自己没有观察到他自己也有这样的一个缺点，这样。
So everyone should be clear of this, the view we just of this logic that we just explained, because as regarding the school of Samkhya, the school of Vesseka, by Sesika, those non-Buddhist schools, for their view, we can know and not understand. We can understand or not understand. That's okay, because here, no one here would take on the view of the non-Buddhist school of regarding self. But here, this is something that many people may commonly come across upon, because here their claim is that if there's no permanent self, then there's no one to experience positive cause and effect and negative cause and effect. Then what is the point of karma? But the school of Madhyamika replied, yes, there's this. We both share the debate of regarding cause and effect. But however, there is a more serious fault in this claim, that this claim saying that the self is permanent. So therefore, only when self is permanent, then the cause and effect can be established. So this claim is actually not right, because that's not the case. Because if there's a permanent self, then that means the self cannot change at all. If it cannot change at all, how can it experience any sorts of happiness or suffering? How can it create any? How can it experience any positive or any negative effects? So you can be seen that within its own view, there's also a fault regarding this view to say that only having a permanent self can the principle of karma work.
所以呢，中观是说这里你指出的 我中观的观点的问题，或是这个争论，同样你也有这个争论和问题，但是呢，我中观可以解除这个问题，但是你没有办法解除你的这个问题啊，这样。
So here the school Madhyamika points out that yes, there is a debate regarding cause and effect, but my view can resolve this debate. It has an answer, a proper answer, but your view cannot give a proper answer.
所以呢，接下来的这个 answer 的话，我们下一堂课讲哈，那个比较长一点，所以今天的课我们就听到这里。
So thereby this answer will be explained in the next class because the answer is actually fairly long. So thus we will end today's class session.
然后大家有什么问题的话，我们这课里有一些时间可以做一些问答的，这样。
So if there's any questions, we have some time for some Q&A.